The 13 playable characters of the recently released Star Wars Hunters all offer an incredible amount of variety in the way the game plays. In today's video, we are going to be fully breaking down each character in the game, discussing their pros and cons, and helping you coordinate with your team to make your squad unstoppable. The titular hunters of Star Wars Hunters are divided into 3 separate classes: damage, tank, and support. Now, based on those names alone, you probably have a pretty good idea of where you want to start if you've played similar hero shooters like Overwatch. However, unlike Overwatch, all characters aren't available right out the gate. Everybody who plays Hunters will follow the same progression path. Well, for free anyways. All Hunters are available to purchase for 1,000 crystals each, which is roughly $10 USD. Luckily, it doesn't take too long to unlock the first 12 for free. Every match played unlocks Hunter tokens used along the Hunter's path. This is where you can see who your next unlock will be. For every game you win, you are awarded 100 XP on the Hunter's path, with losses accounting for 60 XP. This means that most of the characters can be unlocked in roughly 40 to 50 games depending on your skill level. Some feel that the progression system should be randomized, but I think that the characters are ordered in a way to best benefit new players.
Next time, stay home.
Our first hunter is Bounty Hunter Imara Vex. This character is the basic damage class with an automatic custom A280 blaster rifle as their main weapon. The blaster deals moderate damage to enemies at a high range with 5 seconds of continuous fire and 1 second to reload. Her first ability is a homing missile that does a decent amount of damage to multiple enemies simultaneously. This character's big benefit is how incredibly mobile they are, through the use of the grappling hook to navigate around the map and get out of danger fast if need be. The final standard ability at Vex's disposal is the Tracking Scan, a passive ability which reveals or highlights nearby enemies that are near death. All 3 of those abilities will be upgraded as you continue to play as this character, increasing their range, damage, cooldown, and some other additional side abilities. For example, once you reach the 5th level with the missile launcher, you can charge a missile that will also knock back affected opponents. The last thing we need to discuss with this character is her ultimate attack, a barrage of missiles that auto-targets any enemies you're facing. However, it's not recommended that you try using this attack if you're near death. You're very vulnerable, and while the missiles do a decent amount of damage, it's extremely easy to be taken down while in use. Imara being such a simple to learn, easy to master character makes her extremely valuable in play, especially for new players. The next character you unlock will be seen by many as the most useful, the tank class heavy gunner stormtrooper known simply as Sentinel. This character can take a decent amount of damage from opponents while dishing out a heavy barrage of fire from their E-Web heavy repeater. Sentinel is the standard heavy weapons character in the game, perfect for crowd control and holding the point for the team. The Sentinel fires repeatedly for roughly 9 seconds with 2 seconds to reload, but you can double your firing rate by activating the combat shield. Your combat shield also gives you a 300 hit point front-facing shield, however this does significantly decrease your movement speed, so be sure to master switching it on and off. The Sentinel also has a powerful charged attack called the Suppressing Shot that disables opponents and deals heavy damage, and a close-range barrel slam that knocks back nearby opponents while doing heavy damage. The Combat Shield, Suppressing Shot, and Barrel Slam can all be upgraded to benefit their cooldown times and damage that they do, with the fully upgraded Barrel Slam also doing additional damage to enemies that are knocked into walls. The Sentinel's ultimate attack is perfect for overwhelming your enemy. For 20 seconds or until their health is depleted, 2 stormtroopers are summoned to fire on enemies. Unlike the other ultimate attacks though, this one cannot be interrupted while casting. Like I said before, this is the character most new players will gravitate towards. He does a lot of damage and is very hard to defeat in a one-on-one battle, but he does his best when teammates cover his flank. Grozz is the next character you unlock, and the idea of getting another tank before you start playing a support character may sound curious, but it actually makes sense given the prior two characters we looked at. Both Imara Vex and Sentinel are perfect at doing moderate amounts of range damage, and Sentinel even has some pretty good close range defenses. But neither are able to consistently defend and push back opponents that are at close range. This is where Grozz comes into play. He has an unrelenting melee attack using improvised clubs, which if you look closely are the arms of a KX series Imperial security droid. This attack does heavy damage to all nearby enemies, which is balanced out by Grozz's slow movement speed. But if you end up needing a quick boost while on the field, Grozz also has a charge attack that is great at knocking opponents off of control points and doing minor damage. This attack also disables the first affected enemy with a chance to do massive damage if you collide into a wall afterwards. You also have a medium range shockwave attack that also slows down enemies and does additional damage to anybody affected at the farthest range. Your final ability as Grozz is probably one of the most helpful, the War Cry. This ability allows you to heal back at least half of your full HP. This helps out when you find yourself all by yourself, but it's extremely helpful when none of your teammates decides that it's valuable to play support that match. Those three abilities can all be upgraded, reducing their cooldowns and increasing their effectiveness on the battlefield. Grozz is a character that can be deadly in the hands of a skilled player. The self-healing ability is super powerful, and he does a ton of damage. But a less proficient player will become a bullet sponge playing as Grozz and feel powerless to retaliate against characters with high damage, long-range attacks.
Our flag is flying high!
I'm going to be honest, and if you've seen any of the EcksToo Star Wars Hunters streams, you know this already for a fact, but I really despise playing as Zaina. But I know that the issue is with me and not the character. I am not the type of player that can utilize her skills correctly on the battlefield, and I've ran into some very proficient Zaina players. This is the first support character you unlock, and this is the first character that's best performance is entirely reliant on a solid team dynamic. Zaina is equipped with a DL-44 blaster pistol that does a decent amount of damage, although it's not as fast or accurate as something like Imara Vex's blaster rifle. However, Zaina makes up for this by being extremely maneuverable. She has a dodge roll that can be used twice in succession before needing a recharge. This roll benefits players who can run into a situation, fire off a couple critical shots on enemies, and then retreat. It's also extremely beneficial to use the dodge roll in combination with Zaina's key ability, the Back-to-Bomb. This ability releases an area of effect health drop that significantly heals all allies, including Zaina, within range of the drop, with the effectiveness being increased with their passive ability, Combat Medic. And all three of these abilities are upgraded upon leveling Zaina, with the fully upgraded dodge roll offering a damage buff and the Back-to-Bomb including a damage reduction buff. Her ultimate attack is the Rallying Cry that boosts the health of every ally in the area, helping your teammates at full health and saving any ally near death. Zaina, like most of the support characters, works best when you are fully cooperating with your team and coordinating your health drops. That is the best way to play as this character.
Let's have some fun! Commencing target practice!
Next, we are on to one of my favorite characters to use, the long-distance DPS hunter known as Diago. Diago uses a slug thrower rifle that does incredibly high damage. The main downside to this comes in reload time. Unlike the other blasters in the game, the slug thrower does not have an active cooldown and requires frequent reloading. The rifle has 8 shots per cartridge and 2 seconds to reload, offering automatic fire from the hip for moderate damage. The real benefit to Diago is his long-range aimed shot. It does massive damage and can be instantly lethal for critical shots on some hunters. Of course, Diago isn't very effective at close range, especially when facing a tank character, which is where the proximity mine ability comes into play. The mine deals some damage, but the real advantage is in the knockback, allowing enemies to be cleared from your vantage point point or offering space to make a quick escape with your grappling hook. Much like Imara Vex, Diago also has a grappling hook, but it may be slightly more effective, being able to first jump before swinging away from danger. Diago also has the heightened senses skill that will reveal nearby enemies for a time, making it easier for you to select targets before taking aim at the enemy team. Those three abilities can all be upgraded to increase range and decrease cooldown, with the proximity mine also disabling enemies for a few moments when fully upgraded. Diago's ultimate attack is piercing rounds. You get 6 powerful slugs that can go through multiple enemies. This can be an incredibly useful attack, however once activated you are locked into a much slower movement speed, unable to jump or go up on any platforms, with only 8 seconds before the attack is over, so make sure your targets are in sight before you activate the ability. Diago is a great character to play as a lone wolf, but thrives when you coordinate with your team. In combination with the tank character, Diago could be key for your team achieving a full wipe.
Let's have some fun, shall we? Skora is my name. Dedication is my game.
Skora is going to be many players' favorite support character. She's incredibly fast, does moderate damage quickly, and has multiple ways to assist the team in healing and delivering damage. Her primary weapon is a dart gun that when fired at enemies deals damage, and when fired at allies heals them. The only downside compared to the other support characters is that Skora doesn't have a manual self-healing ability. Skora instead has a passive self-heal that only activates while out of combat. She also has a powerful additional healing move called Slingshot that provides temporary health similar to Zaina's ult attack, boosting any ally instead of those who are just in need of health. Skora has a boost ability she can use in 2 bursts that is key to avoiding enemy fire and getting away from danger fast. Those 3 abilities can all be upgraded, and the Slingshot also offers a damage reduction buff to allies when fully upgraded. The best thing Skora has is her ultimate attack, the Unstable Cocktail, which is just diabolical when used in the control points game mode. Skora throws out a pool of poison that quickly kills enemies while healing teammates. This is crucial while trying to capture a command point, as it makes it impossible for the opposing team to stand remotely close to the point when covered. Skora is an extremely useful character, but only during team play. Her inability to heal herself in combat makes playing hero with her much more difficult than any of the other selections.
Someone call for a Jedi? May the centrifugal force be with you!
Of the 2 current lightsaber-wielding characters, J3DI may look like the weaker of the 2 on a surface level. Yes, he doesn't have as many abilities at his disposal when compared to the Sith assassin Rieve, but there are some significant pros to using J3DI instead. The melee lightsaber attack does heavy damage comparable to Grozz, leading to many trying to play J3DI as a tank rather than DPS. This leads to players realizing that they need to balance out attacking with our first ability, the deflecting stance. This allows for the character to deflect most blaster bolts back at the enemy until your stamina depletes. Rieve also has this ability but doesn't have nearly as much stamina as J3DI. His next ability is the Faux Pull, which imitates the standard Force Pull ability a traditional Jedi would use, bringing an opponent closer to J3DI and applying a daze that lasts several seconds. J3DI also has a passive ability that most players seem to be completely unaware of. When damaged, you drop a health pickup that can restore some of the health you lost from an attack. All 3 of those abilities can have their cooldown and effectiveness improved through the level ups, with the Faux Pull 2nd level allowing for their passive ability to activate without taking damage. The character's ultimate whirlwind attack is perfect for clearing out large groups of enemies, although you are still susceptible to taking damage from opponents. J3DI, despite not being as varied or maneuverable as Rieve, makes up for this with more health and stamina, being able to take more abuse and deal a significant amount of damage back to enemies.
Ready or not, here I come.
Charr is the character I see players utilizing the least, and I understand why that is. As if the character difficulty wasn't a big enough hint that you need to spend a lot of time learning this character, any amount of playtime will demonstrate that Charr requires more strategizing than you may initially think. Charr is, much like Grozz, a massive target on the battlefield, which is made up for by having a large pool of health and being pretty fast. He uses a scattergun that's damage depends on your range to your opponents. The closer you are, the more damage you do. It fires 2 shots per reload with a 2-second reload time. This is a super effective weapon for putting down lightsaber users, as they'll have difficulty deflecting your attacks with a time to kill around 2 to 4 shots. Charr also is able to recover health similar to Grozz, but he also gets the benefit a lot of players aren't aware of converting any damage taken while being cast into health. This makes being a bullet sponge very useful during this ability. We also have the very strategic snare trap that, as the name may suggest, will trap opponents in the snare for a significant amount of time. Charr also has a laser tether that, when used, will drag opponents towards Charr, increasing the amount of damage your scattergun is capable of doing. Fully upgrading your snare trap does damage to your opponents that are caught in the snare, and the laser tether increases damage done to tethered tanks. Charr is going to be a very difficult foe to face off with in the hands of an experienced player, so if you've tried him out and haven't found success, keep experimenting. At this point in the Hunter's Path, we are getting characters that are harder and harder to pick up and play.
I hope you're not afraid of the dark. The dark side is primed and ready.
Rieve is a character that people are going to want to play as based on looks alone, and I get it, she's a cool hunter. But this is an extremely difficult character to master. We've already talked about some of her strengths and weaknesses compared to J3DI, such as lower health and stamina. But what Rieve lacks in those areas, she more than makes up for in speed. She does the same amount of damage as J3DI, but her time to kill is significantly shorter. She also shares J3DI's deflection ability, and as we discussed, isn't able to deflect as many bolts due to her lower stamina. Her unique abilities come from the Ruthless Pursuit attack, which instantly slashes an opponent that's a medium range away. This is a great way to close in on enemies before going in for the kill. We also have the extremely effective lightsaber throw that you can angle above and below, and it is lethal if you throw it at a group of enemies. You don't get any fully upgraded bonuses for any of Rieve's abilities aside from the standard improvement to damage range and cooldown times. However, Rieve has one additional ability to jump fairly far across the map and do some damage. It works best in combination with her Ruthless Pursuit attack to jump in, do damage, then make a hasty retreat. Now, the most difficult part about mastering Rieve is being able to nail her ultimate attack. It can be brutal in the right scenario, or a massive mistake if timed incorrectly. As we've mentioned, Rieve does not have a lot of health, so anytime you're unable to deflect or move, you are extremely vulnerable, which she is during the entire cast time of her ult. You need to make sure all opponents around you are in range of this attack, otherwise you'll die before it can be effective. You could pull off an entire team wipe with this ability though, and that's what makes Rieve such a terrifying force on the battlefield, but incredibly difficult to master. If you haven't connected with either of the 2 support characters we've already looked at, you may enjoy playing as Sprocket. This is my choice support character to play as. He feels like a decent hybrid of DPS and support, which can make him very deadly with the right player and team. Sprocket's main attack is in the form of dual blaster remotes that do minor damage but fire continuously for 4 seconds with only a 1-second cooldown to reload. The damage may be insignificant, but it adds up over time, especially when you have a full team behind you, which is where Sprocket thrives. This character utilizes several support abilities such as the medical droid, which is used to heal allies at a close or mid-range for several seconds, which is the key to locking down control over certain areas. In addition to that, you also have the drone defense ability that when used on an ally gives a damage reduction to both hunters for several seconds. He also has an offensive support ability called the targeting drone, which highlights an enemy for your entire team to see for roughly 5 seconds while increasing damage to that hunter during use. The fully upgraded targeting drone also slows down the affected enemy, and the defense drone also increases any healing to that ally while active. We lastly have Sprocket's ultimate attack, the Ultra Turret, which, as the name suggests, is a turret that you drop down at any location you can find and will automatically fire at enemies for a significant amount of time. You can also manipulate which targets the turret decides to fire at by throwing out your targeting drone at specific enemies that you're interested in taking down. I initially wrote off Sprocket. I didn't think I was going to get much use out of this character. Anytime I've encountered them in live games, they've gone down with just a few hits, but they are really useful. I've had a lot of fun playing as Sprocket though, and the team really flourishes when we're about to win and all of those abilities are being utilized to their fullest. A lot of players already hate Utooni, and I get it. They're a hunter that is proficient in dealing damage through several different techniques. For starters, they have two standard weapons, the Pulse Blaster that acts like a powerful grenade launcher, perfect for mid to long range enemies and dealing massive damage to a direct shot while doing additional damage to any other enemies in the area. They can also swap to the powerful close-range Arccaster that can tear through opponents, especially any shielded or lightsaber users, fairly quick. Switching between these weapons on the fly is what separates bad Utooni players from the great. In addition to your standard attacks, Utooni also has an alternate fire ability called Hands Off that creates distance between you and your opponents. They go flying away while you get sent back a few feet as well. There is also the Imploder Grenade that, like the other abilities in Utooni's moveset, is great when it comes to crowd control. The grenade pulls in all enemies in range before detonating. This move is perfect for control point game modes in combination with the hands-off ability. Like the other hunters, each of Utooni's abilities can be upgraded, with some even getting additional benefits. Upgrading allows you to do additional damage immediately after switching weapons, while the radius and cooldowns for your other abilities drastically improve. And the Imploder Grenade has a side effect of slowing down opponents after detonation. Utooni also has a passive ability where upon death, a grenade will drop where they are defeated, which demonstrates how important it is to play the character up close when near death. Lastly, their ultimate. Both Jawas hop into the Scrap Cannon, a slow-moving tank-like machine that blasts a powerful beam continuously for 12 seconds. This is an incredibly devastating attack, however it can be interrupted as it takes about 3 seconds to cast the ability before you're able to use it. Utooni is the perfect character to cause heavy damage to the team quickly and cause a lot of chaos when they're all grouped up together.
Oh yeah! We're rolling now! Time to blow some mind!
We come now to the last character of the Hunter's Path, the tank Slingshot. This was the character I was most excited to play as based on the concept alone. An Ugnaught riding around in a droideka is such an incredible idea for a character, and it gives you the perfect idea of what to expect from playing as Slingshot. Many haven't unlocked the character yet, so they're still fairly uncommon in casual games, but when meeting a player who knows how to use this hunter, it is always a frustrating situation. Slingshot utilizes the droideka's twin blaster cannons as their primary attack, doing moderate damage for 5 continuous seconds with a 2-second reload cooldown. Slingshot can also activate the droideka's iconic shield to deflect enemy damage, though the shield was modified to do explosive damage upon being destroyed or deactivated, effectively clearing the battlefield of all opponents. You're also able to charge through groups of enemies with the trick shot ability. This is similar to the charge attack used by Grozz, but it focuses more on knockback and crowd control rather than disabling enemies. Slingshot can also use the scatter bomb attack, a close-range explosive barrage of mini rockets that can spread damage across a group of enemies, perfect for taking out a tank and healer combo, for example. The previous 3 abilities can all be upgraded to improve their cooldown, range, and damage, with the shield explosion earning additional knockback when fully upgraded. Their ultimate is a devastating close-range attack known as Rocket Stomp that, if used correctly, can easily wipe out an entire group of opponents. Of course, this isn't a droidica without their ability to quickly roll into and out of combat, and this comes into play through Slingshot's passive ability, though it may take some time to master. While you aren't firing, Slingshot moves quickly in the direction you're facing, but you can't turn quite as efficiently during this time, requiring players to learn the intricacies for this character's movement on the battlefield. When you do finally master this character's speed and power, you could be an unstoppable force in control point game modes.
Today, justice will be served. The flame of Mandalore burns bright.
We have one last character to touch on, the Arena Pass exclusive hunter Aran Tal. Of course, they paywalled what is probably going to be the most popular character in the game due to being a Mandalorian with some really awesome cosmetic variants already available in the game. Aran Tal uses 2 blaster pistols that do minimal damage, very similar to Zaina. However, he has the advantage of automatic fire lasting 3 seconds at a time. I bring up Zaina not only because they share the same weapon, but in addition to that, they also flourish under similar playstyles of entering the battle fast, doing damage, then leaving. The key difference being that Zaina is able to do that if she needs to. This is Aran Tal's main thing. You are able to play this character as more of a lone wolf, but there are significant disadvantages to doing that. His main ability is the jetpack boost, which similar to Zaina's role can be used twice in succession. This ability also has the capability of dealing some damage and knockback to opponents though. We also have the flamethrower attack Tal's Breath, which is super effective when used against lightsaber users. We also have the Air Assault ability, which is comparable to Rieve's Vicious Leap, with the main difference being that Aran Tal can still fire his main weapons while leaping towards action. Aran Tal's ultimate attack is an extremely powerful ability called the Fury of Clan Tal. You activate your jetpack and flamethrower to dish out serious close-range damage while remaining mobile on the battlefield for 5 seconds. Aran Tal is far from my favorite character to play as, but his mobility and some of his abilities make him a very useful character in Star Wars Hunters. However, I'm not sure if he's worth the $10 Arena Pass, especially for new players. That is it for all of the characters in Star Wars Hunters currently, as it looks like we're going to be getting a steady release of new hunters and arenas added to the game in the coming months, so make sure you subscribe for all future Star Wars Hunters content, like this video, and comment down below who you're maining and why. I'd really love to know what characters everybody is really enjoying playing with. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you in the next video.